Yes, I have a drinking problem. I consume water continuously this time of year. A drinking problem and proud of it. Folks, I want to thank Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club for sponsoring this program. Also the Iowa chapter of Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Great March for Climate Action. And I want to thank Gateway Marketing Cafe, my anchor business supporter, for putting their weight behind this segment of our show. A look ahead, we're going to talk with Adam Mason real quick here, folks, but just to give you a glance at the lay of the land today, we're going to be talking about Wellmark's. I mean, touching. I mean, I almost want to weep. They're not going to raise our rates this year. I'm kind of broke up about it. So, Maddie, you may have to bring the tissues in for that segment. I also want to talk about I mean, Des Moines just keeps getting better. We are, as you know, I mean, it's what you're well aware now that we are the cultural and culinary crossroads of this continent. We are where it's at. You know, the folks on the coast may not have realized that, and that's just fine because we don't want a lot of damn Yankee fans living here in Iowa. But the bottom line is we just keep getting recognition because of the great place to live that we are. And we are now one of the top 10 cities where you can be young, broke, and single. How cool is that? We beat Portland. Anyway, we're going to talk about that today, what that means. It's kind of a aside to more serious conversations, but it's important. We're also going to talk about the action in the U.S. House on immigration, going the exact opposite direction that Senator Lindsey Graham thinks the Republicans should be going. Interesting. We're also going to talk a little bit about the peace talks that are beginning between the U.S. government and the Taliban. That, to me, is encouraging for a start. But first, we've got to dig into this Smithfield situation. Again, Smithfield, huge American corporation. They've actually they bought up a lot of other companies. They are vertically integrated because of law changes, and now they're being purchased by the largest agricultural corporation in China. And there's mixed reaction to this. Of course, the Farm Bureau, I think, kind of loves it. Senator Grassley, though, showing kind of shades of his former independent-minded self, is expressing fairly critical language. Well, I doubt his critical language will match my guest today. Adam Mason, welcome to the show. You guys have been on the front lines of this issue for a long, long time. What was your first reaction when you heard that the Smithfield sale was pending?
Well, I think, one of the things that we heard right away was that pork producers in Iowa should be happy. That raised red flags for us right away. Obviously, this deal means more factory farms coming to Iowa. And not only that, but more factory farms not just owned out of state, but out of country, Ed. And that should be a huge concern to family farmers, not only in Iowa, but across the country.
Right. Now, currently, we've gone from having about 80,000 hog farmers in Iowa back in the early 1990s. And then, of course, the law changed in 95.
Right.
I was in the middle of that one. And since then, we've seen a gradual deterioration of the number of producers to the point we have now, less than 8,000.
That's correct.
From 80,000 down to 8,000.
That's correct.
And most of those, a lot of them work on contract. Good people who can't find any other way to raise hogs in this environment. But a lot of them are increasingly just outright owned by big corporations. There is Iowa Select, which is owned. Most of their factories are up north.
Right.
Yet their head guy lives in a nice fancy house in West Des Moines.
That's
far
right.
away from the smell of manure and the risk of runoff. But some of these are owned by a corporation like Smithfield.
Right.
And corporations that are headquartered elsewhere in the country. But now the risk, as you said, of this whole thing becoming dominated by international interests.
Right. So that's a great point, Ed. Smithfield is the largest hog producer in the country. They own more factory farms than any other agribusiness corporation in the country. I think one of the things that Grassley was quoted as saying, actually, that struck me was about 74% of the pork market is controlled by 4 corporations, Smithfield being the biggest.
74. Now, last time I checked, it was about 50. It's gone up to 74.
It's gone up to 74 now, 4 corporations.
What are the other 3 besides Smithfield?
You've got Hormel, Tyson, and a packing plant up in Marshalltown is...
Oh, I put you on the spot.
Right.
You sent it back to me. That's good. I like that. Yeah. No, I can't remember the name either. But,
well, Cargill would be up there too.
Yeah.
And there's one other that would be in those top 5.
But 74% of the production
Right.
his own. And again, the part of the problem is you've got production and processing controlled by the same corporation.
Exactly.
We used to have laws against that.
That's right.
Antitrust laws.
Right.
Laws against vertical integration.
Exactly. And so Senator Grassley seems to be raising these concerns, but I have a problem with that because he should remember the time before 74% of that market was controlled by 4 corporations. The time that we were talking about when there were 80,000 family farmers across Iowa raising hogs. That's where we should be at today.
Right, but you don't want to look. I mean, this is one gift horse you don't want to look in the mouth. If you have, did I say that right? I should be mixing horse metaphors with a hog discussion.
That's right.
But I mean, he's with us on this issue, or appears to be, and he's in a really powerful position.
Definitely.
I mean, we want to encourage him.
That's right. That's right. And so there are a couple encouraging things that he's supporting right now. The most recent is an investigation by the Committee on Foreign Investment, which is going to look into the potential national security threats. There's also things that he's been pushing for in terms of, the USDA, the Food and Drug Administration need to take a look at this deal too, to ensure that the production standards in these factory farms aren't lessened.
Now that special, I can't remember the name of it now. It's an interesting creature. It's composed of the heads of a handful of key state agencies.
That's right.
Federal agencies, Homeland Security, CIA, I think.
Right.
I mean, this is an interesting group of people.
Right.
And they, I don't even know if they operate in public. I suspect they don't.
They don't. And so Senator Grassley, Senator Stabenow have been asking to be included in these meetings because their concerns obviously are the connections that the Chinese corporation has to the Chinese government. And, are there potential national security risks there?
What corporation in China does not have a connection to the Chinese government?
That's a good question.
I mean, this is a communist country that has got capitalism, but is controlling it within the framework of their communist approach to governance, which again, I mean, we would not like the lack of freedoms that the Chinese citizens operate under. I mean, it has become more open, yeah, but still, it's a different approach.
Right.
And yeah, there's a very strong link between, and the truth is, here we have that link as well, growing more and more all the time. It has a different form to it.
Right.
But we see, I mean, and this is a good example. I wonder what kind of corporate connections the people on that committee have and how that might influence their decision. But yeah, I mean, it's a good question. What kind of potential, beyond the issues of food, water quality, vertical integration, control of our food supply by a foreign corporation, what are the national security concerns that this group might be looking at?
That's a great question. I think a couple of the things are, as we mentioned, the ties that this corporation has to the Chinese government, but then other things too in terms of, we talked about animal safety, food safety, the Chinese regulations definitely are not necessarily the same standards that we have here. If you remember, 10 years ago, the avian flu, bird flus in China.
The lead in toys. I mean, there's lots of problems. Yeah,
exactly. And so those are all things that we need to take a look at. And as our global market continues to take more power away from everyday folks here in Iowa, what impact is that going to have on Iowa farmers?
Yeah. And I don't know how much influence we can have here in Iowa, other than through Senator Grassley. But
right.
But I get he's in a key position. He seems to be on the right side of this issue.
Yes, he does.
We're trying to get him on this program. By the way, Maddie has been camping out in front of his house. To get him through, not quite yet, but I mean, actually, I would think he'd want to talk about this. This is an issue where you can cross you can cross over to the other side of the aisle. So, what is CCI focused on in terms of your action to try to move this forward? One
of the things that we're doing definitely, is just maintaining a presence on the ground in rural Iowa communities. Again, this summer already, we're seeing what looks to be record expansion amongst the factory farm industry. So we're out there actively looking for connections to Smithfield, because that could potentially then be a connection to this Chinese buyout. We found one already, actually, over in Tama County, a Tama County factory farm. The county supervisors there voted last week to recommend denying that. Ultimately, it goes to the DNR.
Yeah, and where is that right now?
It's pending at the DNR,
okay,
so they're reviewing it. And this is a Summit Farms factory farm owned by Bruce Rastetter. So that just adds another web of intricacy to this whole buyout. Is the people who contract for Smithfield? How are they feeling about it? We know that at least one major shareholder in Smithfield has expressed some concern. But definitely interested to see if there's other big shareholders in Smithfield that are going to express concerns about this too, and kind of side with Grassley.
Yeah. What do you know about the Chinese corporation itself? I mean, do you have any information about how they operate as an environmental? Are they environmentally friendly? I mean, it almost sounds like a funny question, perhaps, but do you have any history of their track record of safety, of concern for workers?
No, a lot of that information has been pretty hard to find. We often complain about transparency and record keeping when it comes to
probably a lot worse in China.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I'm hoping that that's one of the goals of this committee, to root out some of that information. And again, obviously a concern there. Hopefully Senator Grassley can turn that around and open that up for the public, because that's information that we need to know if they're going to be owning factory farms here in Iowa.
So that's the real pressure point right now is that, and again, I'm blanking on the name of that special task force.
The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States.
Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States.
Yes.
Okay. And again, they will basically they don't have the power to make the decision, do they? They recommend it to the
That's correct.
To the president or to Congress?
To Congress.
To Congress. Okay, so their recommendations generally are taken seriously.
Yes.
But who knows whether they will be in this case.
Right. I mean, as you mentioned, Ed, it's made up of really high up cabinet members, CIA head, Treasury head, departments like that are represented there. So they'll take this very seriously. It could be, 2.5, 3 months before they have finished their investigation into this. Yeah. So it's something that's going to take a while to find out.
CCI has been around a long time, and I'm not sure if you've ever worked on an issue relating to agriculture where the pressure point involved the CIA.
not to our knowledge anyway. I'm sure there's a couple files there.
It's a unique situation. Well, it's unique because we haven't had corporate interests from foreign countries basically coming in and wanting to buy one of the four corporations in this case that controls 74% of a huge industry like hog production. That's unprecedented.
That's right. And I want to go back to one thing you said earlier, Ed, is that we opened the door for this back in 1995 when Governor Branstad and others pushed through legislation that allowed corporate ownership of hogs. Right. Now we see states like Missouri and Nebraska that don't have that kind of law on the books opening that door and specifically inserting into their legislation that foreign ownership is allowed for livestock. And so that's a huge concern. Yeah. That's a path that we don't need to continue going down here in Iowa. Yeah.
So what else is CCI working on relevant to the farm economy these days?
There's a lot going on. I mentioned factory farm expansion. We're still in a heated battle with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, pressuring them to sign a work plan that was established by the Environmental Protection Agency to bring them into compliance with the Clean Water Act. That gets back to who's policing factory farms when they pollute, and we know that the DNR hasn't been doing the job on that case.
Yeah. So, are you getting any favorable responses from Chuck Gipp? I mean, as a legislator, he talked a good environmental line. I'm not sure that was always consistent, but he at least seems to have some empathy. And I think part of that is he's from Northeast Iowa,
right,
where you've got a very strong environmental ethic, partly because of the dominance of tourism. I mean, you've got places in Northeast Iowa. I mean, you can do things there you can't do anywhere in the state.
Right.
Fantastic, fall colors, trout fishing, beautiful bluffs and hills, great canoeing. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on there that a state representative from that area would want to be protective of. So hopefully that's transferred into his job with the DNR as well.
We would hope so, but it's not what we've seen. And actions speak louder than words. 2 years of record factory farm expansion, an unwillingness to sign this work plan with the EPA is just kind of sending us the message that he's not wholly serious about it.
Yeah. Well, what to do next?
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, the Farm Bill, that was moved on yesterday, cutting $1 billion out of the SNAP programs, nutrition programs, food stamps, stuff like that everyday folks, low-income folks especially, depend on, rather than making sure that we have the revenue to pay for these programs.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how that's going to end up.
Right. It's just something we have to keep the pressure on. We'll see how it's finally negotiated out.
Yeah. All right. Well, Adam Mason, folks with Iowa CCI. Adam, thanks so much for taking the time to join us and keep us posted on what happens. I mean, it's a disturbing trend. Some people would accuse folks who are concerned about a big corporation owning Iowa farmland, Iowa farming corporations. They would accuse us of being xenophobic. This is not about xenophobia. This is nothing against the Chinese. I'm as opposed to a major Chinese agricultural corporation owning Iowa's largest hog producer, as I am with a U.S. corporation owning the largest industry in some other country. We got to keep things as local and connected to regional economies as possible.
That's right,
and it works both ways. So, anyway, there's such a thing as a global market, but there's also within that context, you've got to keep the basics of your economy, the basics of your self-sufficiency close to home.
That's right.
Yeah. So I hope this committee comes out on the right side. It'll be interesting. It doesn't happen often where the CIA and Iowa CCI agree.
That's right.
But we'll see what happens. It may not happen. We hope it does.
That's right.
All right, Adam, thanks so much.
Thank you, Ed.
Folks, I want to thank Tinker Heating and Cooling for sponsoring this segment of our show as well. Tinker is in the air conditioning and furnace business. Give him a shout at 371-2114 and thank him for supporting this program. Also, I'm going to be having lunch at Hawk Restaurant. That's HOQ Restaurant in the East Village. Hawk Restaurant gets 90% of its food from Iowa farms. That is impressive. I also want to remind you about the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit coming up in November, where you can take a business idea and incubate it with a lot of good information, good advice. We'll talk, too, about the immigration reform bill that passed a House committee yesterday on party line votes. We're going to also throw out a quick nod of thanks to Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering in Beaverdale, Diana's Wedding Cakes in Newton, and S&P Piano, who have moved way too many of my pianos. I don't know how many discs have been thrown out because those guys have moved my piano. I don't even want to think about it. When we come back, we're going to be switching gears here and talking about the Wellmark non-rate increase. For a change, they're not going to increase our rates. We'll talk about that. Also going to talk about Des Moines being one of the most exciting places to live if you're young, poor, and single. Anyway, and later in the program, Donna Red Wing with One Iowa joining us to talk about the Iowa Fair Courts Coalition. And again, we talk also about this immigration bill moving through the U.S. House.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
ordered me to come in here and sit down, I tell you. Maddie's getting married in a couple weeks, folks, so she'll have a new last name next time next month rolls around. We're happy to see her and Nick getting connected. And we've got Donna Redwing joining us shortly. Donna Redwing is with One Iowa. Looking forward to hearing her take on the Iowa Fair Courts Coalition. I do want to thank Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling for sponsoring this segment of our show. And when you use the word tinker and courts in the same sentence, maybe something comes to mind. The black armband case from the 1960s. This was a case involving Des Moines school kids who felt they had a right to protest the Vietnam War by wearing black armbands. The Des Moines School District felt otherwise. They were sued by the kids, by the kids' parents and an attorney, young attorney named Dan Johnston. And eventually went all the way to the Supreme Court and won. And that is the Tinker versus the Des Moines Public Schools. And yes, related to the Tinker who helped sponsor this program through his AC and heating business. So, use that. Use Tinker if you can, both because he's a great guy with a family history that means a lot in this community. And also because he supports this program. And this is the alternative to what you'll find on the AM and FM dial. I also want to thank, real quick here, Sargent's Garage at 6th and College. They're one of my business supporters as well. Also, Dan Kelly's Real Estate Business in Newton. Got a home or business you want to buy or sell in Newton? Dan Kelly is your guy to go to. Also, Ritual Cafe at 13th and Locust in downtown Des Moines. All right, so before Donna joins us, I got two other things I want to talk about. We'll start with the most lighthearted element first, and that is the new recognition Des Moines received today. Des Moines is in the top 10 of the cities in the U.S. you could live in if you are young, broke, and single. That's according to Money Under 30. I've not heard of Money Under 30. Maybe Maddie has heard of Money Under 30 because she's still under 30. But anyway, I guess people pay attention to this, and I guess this is a significant accomplishment for Des Moines. Why would you not want to live someplace that's affordable if you are young and broke and single? I was fascinated to see that Portland, Oregon is not in the top 10. So, we beat Portland. Maybe instead of Portlandia, where young people go to retire, that can be the new descriptor for Des Moines. We can get our own online series. Scott Scepter, I know him as a guy I like to beat at ping pong once in a while. You probably know him as the star of Iowa Nice, a YouTube video that came out during the caucuses a while back and scored well over 1 million hits. He says, in terms of having the ring of truth, we do have cheap beer. Zach Mannheimer with the Des Moines Social Club says you can literally show up with no money in Des Moines in your pocket, and your dreams can be realized here. Said Mannheimer, who arrived here from New York nearly 6 years ago with $160 to his name. I was young, broke, and single in New York. You can't do anything. This is a badge of honor for Des Moines. We are moving in the right direction. Yeah, it is good. And I was one of the first people to get to know Zach when he moved here. Yeah, and he was young, broke, and single, and had a great idea. And that idea has become an amazing success that now is moving into its own headquarters in the old fire station on Southwest 9, just south of the, I wouldn't even call it Southwest 9. It's still 9th Street in the downtown corridor. All right, so one other thing to talk about here real quick. Okay, interesting. We have the insurance exchanges coming our way really soon. This is an element of the Affordable Care Act, and so it may be connected to that fact that Iowa's biggest insurance company, Wellmark, some people say they don't want a single-payer system. Well, you know what? We've got one. In Iowa, it's called Wellmark because they control about 80% of the health insurance policies. Yeah, that's effectively a single-payer system. But instead of the advantage of having a government that's not interested in profit running it, we've got a corporation whose main goal is to make money. Now, I really got a kick out of this because, again, they're saying that they're not going to raise rates on individual customers or on small businesses next year. Now, they've raised the rates by between 8% and 18% annually for several years now. And I'm thinking, okay, so, all right, I guess we get a little break. But then the ridiculous patronizing language that's coming out of the company, quote, "We are rewarding our valued members with today's announcements," said the chairman of Wellmark. As a mutual company, Wellmark is owned by its policyholders, and these decisions are designed to provide them with the maximum flexibility and choice while minimizing their increasing cost. No, they're designed to assure the maximum profit for this corporation, again, which is effectively a single payer system in Iowa, controlling again 80% of the policies. I just now I want to get this guy in, the new insurance commissioner, Nick Gerhardt. He said that Wellmark's announcement makes him suspicious. He suspects that the insurer is leaning away from participating in the health insurance exchange. And some experts have warned that Wellmark's absence from that exchange could hamstring the new marketplace. Again, I can see that. If you're the company that controls 80% of the health insurance policies right now, yeah, maybe you not participating could be problematic. I don't know enough about how that works. I'm not sure anybody really knows a lot about how it pans out. But I've not had a policy with Wellmark. I intentionally avoided going there years ago. After I had that platinum insurance policy when I was a state lawmaker, which it makes me sad to see policymakers get incredible health insurance plans. I mean, that doesn't bother me that people have good health insurance. What bothers me is that they can't see that everyone else deserves that. That's what troubled me about the state's health plan. When I got out of that, I didn't go to Wellmark because I didn't want to be with a company that controlled everything nearly. So I found a smaller firm and stayed with them for a few years until they doubled my rates despite great health, hardly ever using the service. So sometime in the near future, once this insurance exchange is in place, I'm going to be going through that process of trying to find the right place, the right policy. Have to do that, I guess, by law. So anyway, we'll see. The insurance commissioner suspects that Wellmark. This is an indication. This promise not to raise rates next year is an indication that Wellmark is not going to participate in the exchange. That could present problems for the viability of the exchange. We'll see. Gerhardt also goes on to say that the exchange could be attractive to middle-class families and small businesses that will qualify for tax credits to help them buy policies through the new system. Again, I'm not sure how that's going to work out, what kind of paperwork is needed. But I did know with some surprise that a family of four making up to $92,000 can qualify for some level of tax credit. I don't know how much that is. I don't know what kind of paperwork's involved. Maybe it's not worth it. But a family of four making $92,000, that's a lot of money. That's a lot more than the average income, the median household income. So we'll see. Again, and this is coming down soon. Wellmark's announcement today came 10 days before it must announce whether or not it will compete for customers on the government's new health insurance exchange. So we'll see what happens. I suspect Gerhardt is probably right. At any rate, I'm kind of offended by the patronizing language that, nobody should. We are rewarding our valued members with today's announcements. Oh, come on. You've been jacking our rates up for the last several years between 8 and 18%. Who listening to the show has seen their income go up 8 or 18%? Come on, give me a break. Anyway, we'll be tracking that. I'd like to get some other people on the show to talk about the shift into the new health insurance exchange program. We're going to go to a short break here. I want you to stay around, folks, because I'm excited about the next conversation. We're having Donna Redwing on the show. She is the executive director of One Iowa, and we're going to be talking about the Iowa Safe Courts Coalition. There we go. I got too much on my mind here. I do want to thank, again, Tinker Heating and Cooling for sponsoring this segment of our show. And also a nod to my other business supporters, the Fighting Burrito shop with restaurants here in Des Moines and in Ames. Also, Story County Veterinary Clinic on Highway 30 between Ames and Nevada. And once again, Ritual Cafe, one of my favorite places for a cup of tea, a panini, and some fantastic music in the evenings. In a few minutes, folks, we'll be back with Donna Redwing with One Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. The dawn of a new era begins. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm not the guy who cared about love. I'm not the guy who cared about fortunes and such. Never cared much. Oh, look at me now.
Max Wellman, folks. Max Wellman and his trio. Some great music. You can hear it anytime you want if you subscribe to the Songbook Project. Check that out on Max Wellman's website. All right, I want to thank the Repertory Theater of Iowa for sponsoring this segment of our program and remind folks about Shakespeare on the Lawn coming up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a wonderful event. You bring your picnic. You bring whatever you want. You bring a blanket. You sit on the grass. You watch Shakespeare. You watch Crazy Old Puck. It's a great performance, Midsummer Night's Dream. And what better place to see it than at the Salisbury House? Check it out online. That's rtiowa.org. I want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering. Yeah, again, Tally's it's not just a great place for a restaurant, but for receptions. And I know more people who are looking at hosting receptions there as well. Good idea. Also, thank you to the Iowa Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit, which is, again, an event coming up this fall, big event coming up this fall on November 9th. All right, we're going to go to our phone line and welcome Donna Red Wing to the program. Hello, Donna.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
Good. More importantly, how about those Red Sox?
Go Red Sox, go Bruins.
Well, that's right, the Bruins. Gosh, what are they? Look at them. I mean, those first two games were amazing. What? What they played 7 periods.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I've never been so excited about hockey in my life.
I've never seen hockey played in June in my life. I don't know.
Last time I was in Boston, one of the last times, I was standing, you'll appreciate this, right there at Faneuil Hall, and all of a sudden there was this uproar, and I turned around, and the Bruins were walking through the square carrying the Stanley
Oh, really?
Cup.
Like the downtown
I thought I had died and gone to heaven.
That's hilarious. Anyway, the Iowa Fair Courts I think I said Save Courts Coalition. Yeah, well, silly me.
If they're fair, they're probably safe, right?
Safe is good too, but we'll take fair if we can get it. So what is the Iowa Fair Courts Coalition?
I'm glad you asked. It's a group of organizations that have come together, and we're really looking for more people to get engaged, to really advocate for fair and competent nominations to the courts. We've been talking to people around the state and find that, most people understand the legislature and most people understand the importance of the administration.
You think most people understand the legislature?
Well, they don't understand it. They understand how important it is, important it is. But when you talk about the courts, most people think of that as the place you go if you did something wrong, right? It doesn't seem to be, that third leg of the government stool that it should be. Right. And so we've been talking to people about how important the courts are. And, I asked a bunch of folks if they could name a Supreme Court justice, and many of them couldn't.
Not even Wiggins, the guy whose name was all over signs last year?
No, I'm talking United States.
U.S. U.S. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And they're in the news all the time. So at the Iowa Fair Courts Coalition, we're really bringing people together to learn about the courts, to look at the courts. You probably remembered in your history classes in high school or maybe in college. Remember Alexis de Tocqueville?
Yeah,
remember
sure.
Him?
From France.
That's right, 19th century.
Yep.
He said that most public issues in the United States eventually become legal issues. And we know that. As, the LGBT community, we know how important the courts are here in Iowa. But whether you're talking about the environment, whether you're talking about the safety of children, whatever you care about, the courts are eventually going to rule on that.
So is the Iowa Fair Courts Coalition focused strictly on the Iowa Supreme Court? Or
No. We're focused on courts across the country.
Okay. So, and the idea is that that the nomination process should be fair.
It should be fair. And here in Iowa, the nation looks to Iowa for many things, but one thing that the nation is looking at is our own Senator Grassley. He is the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, and what we're seeing is a lot of the president's nominations for federal court, most are being held up, and that's
some of them being held up by Grassley.
They are being held up by Grassley.
Well, we just got done saying nice things about Grassley the first part of the show because of his criticism of the sale of Smithfield to a big Chinese ag corporation. But yeah, there's been a lot of disappointment lately in a lot of his activities, and this is a good example. Why hold up appointees for reasons that, I mean, in the past, there had to be a really, really strong reason why you would prevent somebody from becoming a judge.
And we have, and I think most people don't know this, 1 in 10 judgeships are vacant right now.
Across the country.
Across the country.
Wow.
160 million Americans live in a district where there aren't enough judges to hear cases. There are judicial emergencies in 35 districts. That's crazy. And I understand why some nominations are held up or you need to look at people a little more carefully. But I think that, no one thinks that Washington works, right? And this is a part of the problem when good, carefully vetted nominees with some bipartisan support are simply not passed through the nominations process. And so at Iowa Fair Courts Coalition, first, we're just trying to educate people around the courts. Right. Sometimes it feels really complicated. Some people think it's dull or boring, but it's really not. We need courts that have the least number of vacancies. We need our courts to work, right? And we need justices who represent us. When you were in college, when you thought of a judge, who did you think of? Somebody that was
it wasn't Judge Judy.
Right. It was someone who was male, old, and white.
Probably,
correct?
that was pretty much
that's
it.
A judge, right? Google judge, that's what you see. And, what Obama's been doing is the nominations have included women, people of color. It's been a real diversity that I think, more reflects our community. So we're just hoping that people will get engaged, people will want to learn more about the courts, and people will learn enough so that they'll understand that the emergencies we have, the judicial emergencies, are real, and we need to do something.
So again, Iowa Fair Courts Coalition, but really the focus is not as much on Iowa as it is on the federal level, because as you pointed out, our system here tends to work a lot better than it does in some parts of the country.
Our system does, and our system really, I think, can be a model for the rest of the country.
Yeah. And so people know how it works. Here, there's a commission is appointed to, And again, even that commission needs to be approved by the Iowa Senate, a 2/3 vote of the Iowa Senate. But those I believe it. I think I'm right there, Donna. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that board appoints or recommends nominations that the governor then decides to appoint or not.
Right.
And then they also have to be approved by the Iowa Senate. And so, and then the check and balance is that they have to be voted on by the general public every 4 years. And we saw how that works. And I guess you and I would strongly disagree with the voters' decision to oust 3 of the Supreme Court judges based on the marriage equality ruling. But that's the check and balance that should be in place, ideally exercised when you've got a judge that truly has acted inappropriately.
Sure.
So, but it's a great system compared to the one you'll see in a lot of states where judges go out and campaign. They raise money, they put up yard signs, they run TV commercials.
Right.
Where does the money come from? Well, the money comes from, in many cases, people who have a vested interest in what happens in the courts. That's not healthy. That's not good.
Right. And I think what the Iowa system helps to do is keep politics out of the courts. And we saw lots of money coming into the state around the Wiggins retention, and we saw lots of money coming into the state around the non-retention, the ousting of the 3 judges.
Right.
But for the most part, we didn't see judges politicking, right? We didn't see them with their buttons and yard signs.
Well, some even accuse them, say, "Hey, you're being attacked by a radical fringe group that wants to deny civil rights to an important constituency. Get out there and fight for your jobs." And I have mixed feelings about this. I know that Marsha Turnus and the others didn't do that, and while I respect that, I think given the unusual circumstances of the campaign against them, it probably would have made sense for them to do that. Let me ask you one question on that. Why do you think that Turnus and named Baker, and I'm blanking on the other names now. The 3 that were ousted a couple years back. I'm blanking, but Turnus and the other 2 who were ousted. Why were they thrown out while Wiggins was able to retain his seat? What changed in that 2-year period?
I think both retention votes were really referendum on same-sex marriage, don't you? I mean, that's
absolutely.
What it was. It really wasn't
absolutely.
about. It wasn't about whether these were, whether these were judges who should be retained or not. This was really about the about same-gender marriage, and so I think, folks in Iowa are used to the fact that gay and lesbian people can get married.
So in that 2-year period, we as a general population got more comfortable with the fact that gays and lesbians were marrying and the world wasn't crumbling.
Right.
In fact,
the sun came up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, if it was, a referenda on marriage, we won. Turnus and Stride and Baker were not retained because I think the will of the people was not there yet. They weren't comfortable yet.
Well, and also, I think a more aggressive campaign was run to defend the judiciary, to defend the idea that you shouldn't be ousting a judge just because you disagree with one ruling. I think there was a more ambitious campaign this time around.
And I think the campaign 1 really talked about a court that was fair and competent, but 2, it also acknowledged that wasn't what this was really about.
Yeah.
This was about a group of people who didn't like how Wiggins voted on Varnum, how he ruled on Varnum, and they were going to get rid of him.
Well, Donna, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Again, congratulations on helping to drive the Iowa.
Thank you. Can I give you a website if people are interested?
Absolutely.
It's really easy, www.whycourtsmatteriowa.org.
Why Courts
Matter.
That's WHY. Why Courts Matter.
Matter Iowa. All one big long word. .org. And they can find more information about that.
Very good.
And I think we need at some point to talk about the Red Sox.
Yeah, we should have you on just to discuss I should have you and Tony Bizignano on during the same program, so you can try to set that ridiculous Yankees fan straight.
Sox jacket.
Yeah, of course. Well, he was on the show here a couple weeks back, and he came with a green shirt. I said, "You can't wear a green shirt, Tony." So he runs out. And
Why
he buys
not? That's the Celtics.
Well, no, but it was the green. It was just the color green. It blends in with the green wall, and all you would see with a little floating head. You can't wear green on the show. So the guy runs out and buys a Yankee shirt.
Oh no! You'll appreciate this. Watching the Bruins the other night, we actually bought whoopie pies at the farmers market.
Maddie, do you even know what whoopie pies are? She's shaking her head no, but if she did, she would probably have them at her wedding.
You have to be from Boston.
Yeah, well, they're pretty fun actually. Hey, yeah. So again, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now you're a Red Sox fan. Are you also a Shakespeare fan?
Somewhat.
All right. Well, we have a great production of William Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream coming up.
Yes.
Actually,
Where?
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's the Repertory Theater of Iowa's performance at the Salisbury House, 7:30 p.m. Yeah, it's outdoors. You get to sit on a blanket. You have a picnic. You drink your wine. You watch Bill Shakespeare. It's a great production anyway.
And maybe you bring a whoopie pie, right?
Maybe you can bring a whoopie. Well, if you bring one, you got to bring enough for everybody. Okay?
You do.
That's
really
the rule
do.
on whoopie pies. All right, Donna Red Wing, folks, with One
so
Iowa
much.
regarding the Iowa Fair Courts Coalition. Thanks so much for joining us, Donna. All right, hey, I want to thank some of my other business supporters, Community CPA and Associates. That's the business founded by Yingsa, now the 10th largest accounting and tax firm in the state. Check them out, folks, at 3816 Ingersoll Ave in Des Moines. Again, thank you to Fighting Burrito at 13th and Locust in Des Moines, and also on 117 Welch Ave in Ames. A custom-made burritos that you decide how they put them together at a very, very affordable price. And again, my anchor business supporter, Gateway Marketing Cafe. Thank you so much for your support for this program. Folks, thank Gateway Market as a customer in their grocery store, also for their fantastic meals for breakfast, lunch, and supper, and a catering service as well. When we come back, we're going to talk about the immigration bill that just was approved by a House panel on a party line vote. This is congressional Republicans in the U.S. House going the opposite direction that Republican Senator Lindsey Graham feels the party should be going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to the Fallon Forum, folks. That's Mary McAdams. Hey, if you like to run and you are concerned about cancer, or even if you are just concerned about cancer, maybe you've got a cancer victim in your family, like I do, my dad. Who I would call him a cancer survivor because he managed 10 years beyond what he was originally said he would live. The $1 Million Marathon might interest you. This is a project being organized by Above and Beyond Cancer. Dr. Deming is a big part of that. The $1 Million Marathon starts this very week, actually Friday, in fact. It starts in Washington State. It's almost 4,000 miles across the country through Iowa in mid-July. 160 marathons, one after the other, a relay run of marathons. Check them out, folks. There's going to be a good event here in Des Moines. And again, they've already raised over $250,000 for cancer research. Again, just a quick shout out for some of my business supporters, reminding you about Tinker Heating and Cooling for air conditioning and heating service. Also, Hawk Restaurant, H-O-Q, Hawk Restaurant in the East Village. 90% of what they serve comes from Iowa farms. And a longtime Central Iowa veterinarian, Kim Holding, known and loved by many. She's done a lot of great work for a lot of people's animals. She's at the Story County Veterinary Clinic on Highway 30, just east of Ames. All right, we're going to. I want to wrap up the. I meant to show this video when Donna was on the show. I want to at least show a segment from Dennis Shepard's speech to the Matthew Shepard Scholarship Awards dinner last week. It was his speech was amazing. It was truly amazing. His delivery, the depth of what he had to say. I just want to play a 1 minute long clip so you can get a sense of how powerful this event was.
That's the important thing about you being here. It shows these kids, it shows everybody there is support, there is belief in what they do, there is belief in what they can accomplish. When you leave here and start college, as the former recipients can tell you, you can never go home again. Life changes. You can only go forward. You will have stumbles, as some of the previous speakers have said.
Yeah, it was. He was talking to the 11 young people who had received the award, and this award comes at a pretty nice sum of money to go to college. It was very good. And again, I noticed how, I mean, this has been going on for a few years now, and it's kind of a pay it forward thing. The kids who get through this program become great leaders themselves and great mentors for those who come after. So again, Dennis Shepard, the father of Matthew Shepard, the young gay man in Wyoming who was killed several years ago in an act of hate. All right, so looking at the immigration reform proposal, the U.S. Senate has come together in a bipartisan way to try to do something. It's not great, but it's something. It's something. And you have I mean, part of it is a political reality, a political wake-up call. The GOP knows that it's not going to win elections if it continues to alienate the largest growing constituency group in the country. I mean, the news last week, or was it the week before? The birth rate among Caucasian Americans is now lower than the death rate. You know, we're a declining demographic, Maddie. We should get used to that fact and embrace the fact that not just our country, but our planet is becoming more and more diverse. But certainly, regarding our country, yeah, diversity, it's there. It's getting more. Again, you can't ignore the fact that that Hispanics are a growing force in politics, except if you're in the U.S. Congress, apparently. If you're in the U.S. Congress and you're a Republican, I guess ignoring that fact somehow makes sense. But, you know, as Lindsey Graham said this week, you know, the political reality is the GOP will remain the minority party and will lose the presidency in 2016 if it continues in this direction. So they're trying to, I mean, maybe you could question the motive. Okay, you would like to believe that our elected officials take these actions because they believe it is good policy. And maybe there's some of that, maybe there's some of that going on as well. But it does seem that a lot of the motive among Republicans who want to do something positive is more political than policy oriented. But again, we'll take what we can get. But in the House, it's despite the political reality, they continue to go in the direction of really, really horrible policy. Okay, this is a bill passed out of a committee yesterday that would help enforce federal immigration law, encouraging. I don't quite know what encouraging means, but it would encourage state and local police to help immigration officials, federal immigration officials. And it's being characterized. It's the Republicans behind it in the U.S. House hail it as a proposal that's a crucial first step toward restoring the public's faith that federal officials will reduce the number of people entering the country illegally. Critics are saying that the proposal unfairly criminalizes 11 million people in the country without permission. Key Democrats in the Senate say that it is a non-starter. There's no way this is going anywhere. Again, it's not a bipartisan effort. You know, if you saw some Democrats and Republicans working together and they came up with this, you could at least say there was an attempt to create something bipartisan. But no, that didn't happen. This was the anti-immigrant fringe of the Republican Party who control that chamber, pushing this forward. It would lead to, the critics in the U.S. Senate say it would lead to racial profiling and a roundup of the estimated 11 million people in the country illegally. The head of the Judiciary Committee, the ranking Democrat on the Judiciary Committee in the U.S. House, John Conyers from Michigan, says, by immediately converting all police officers, local police officers, into immigration agents, this bill will effectively force them to make public safety a distant second priority. Yeah. All right. So it's a non-starter. It's politically foolish. Why are they doing it? We'll have to talk about that some other time. I want to get some other voices involved in that conversation because it almost seems like, you know, political suicide isn't something you see too often with an entire group of lawmakers. Usually it happens on an individual basis. Anyway, it seems to be happening collectively here. Much as the fabled lemmings would periodically run off the cliff, it seems like congressional Republicans seem inclined to do the same with their party. All right, again, folks, I want to thank the $1 Million Marathon for sponsoring this segment of our show and highly recommend you learn more about this Coast to Coast for Cancer initiative sponsored by Above and Beyond Cancer. Again, thanks to Ritual Cafe for sponsoring this program as well. They're at 13th and Locust and a great place for music as well as coffee, tea, paninis, and really good smoothies I've discovered. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, another one of my sponsors in Beaverdale, great restaurant in the downtown heart of Beaverdale. And Dan Kelly's real estate business as well. Give Dan Kelly a holler if you're interested in property in Newton. I want to thank Maddie Arrington, my producer. I want to thank Webcast One Live for providing the studio. And remind you, too, that tomorrow is the beginning of the 4-day run of Repertory Theater of Iowa's Shakespeare on the Lawn. That's going to be at the Salisbury House outdoor, on the lawn. Bring your picnic lunch, your supper, your wine, your kid. You know, should be a great event, folks. I'll be back tomorrow with more conversation on the Fallon Forum.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.